Today is a CEO day for my business. I take these at least on a monthly basis. The focus of today's CEO day is for me to sit down and map out my quarterly plan for Q3 2024. So I thought I would show you the behind the scenes and talk through what is happening and how I'm working through my planning process for Q3 for both of my businesses and my personal life. So I just finished getting ready and I'm about to go to a little cute coffee shop to just sit there for a while and do the first part of my planning process, which is where I sit back and really anchor back into the vision that I have that I want to be living out for my life and for my businesses, and also reflect on what happened over the last quarter and so far this year, and whether I have achieved my goals and the progress that I've made. So what I'm going to talk about today is my own behind the scenes, what's happening in my businesses. I'll share my reflections and my goals and the things that I'm working on so that you can hopefully do a quarterly reset for your own business right alongside me. I'm also doing this today in preparation for our quarterly CEO day that I do for my coaching programs, both in the High Profit Society and in the Wealthy Women Collective. I take them through a similar process every quarter, so I like to go through my own planning ahead of those calls just so I am all clear and ready to lead them through the same thing. Part one of my planning in the coffee shop, and I'm about to go back to my office. I do have one call today, and I'm going to do the full sort of deep dive into all of my takeaways and reflections from this part before I start on the second part of my planning. But before I do go back, I do want to share that when I started this morning thinking about having my CEO day, I was kind of not looking forward to it. Not that I wasn't Maybe it wasn't that I wasn't looking forward to it. I had a little bit of dread thinking about what I was going to find when I dug into the last quarter. I was definitely trying to, in my mind, come up with all the reasons why I didn't want to do this today and I had better things to do. But I know that that's a normal thing that a lot of people have happen when they think about planning. So I did it anyways. I said, you know what? I'm just going to start. I'm going to take 15 minutes and answer these questions, dig into these questions that I have and see what I see. And if I want to be done after 15 minutes, then that's fine. I'm going to allow myself to be done. What ended up happening is as I looked back at the goals that I had set for Q2, I did so much better than I thought I did. I was being unnecessarily hard on myself, I think. Like a lot of us do, thinking that we're not doing enough, but I found I actually hit all of the business goals that I set and a lot of the personal stuff. So I'm going to go back to my office, have my call, have lunch, and then I'll come back and share the reflections and the wins and the things that I'm taking away from this part of the process. Before I jump into the second piece of my planning day, I'm going to do a quick recap of what I wrote down this morning as I did my reflection and revisited the overall vision that I have for my life. So, what you're going to hear me talk about is business and life and money stuff. I really don't believe in siloing different aspects of your life. I think it's important to encompass, everything together, because I need to make sure that my business is actually supporting my life, and that I'm actually able to do the things that, I really enjoy doing, that I'm spending my life the way I want to spend it. So you're going to hear me kind of cover all of it. So the first thing that I did was I revisited my North Star. This is where I write down the things that I want to do, to have, and to be. And honestly, I didn't really change much about what I put in here from what I have historically had in my overall vision. I think the biggest thing that I found the first time I went through and sort of brain dumped everything was I realized I didn't put anything related to Young and Co. My my business number one. And I thought that was interesting that my brain immediately went to a lot of other life focused things and even, coaching and personal brand focused things. I didn't put much in for Young and Co. But what I did put when I think about how I want to show up in that business in the longer run, I put that I really want to continue to build out the team and continue to train the team to allow me to step back, even more and be more the business owner role rather than even having to be fully the CEO, but just to eventually step back and allow me to be a little bit more passive there. Just because when I think about the way I want to spend my time, I really enjoy being the visionary. I enjoy the personal brand work that I do. I enjoy the coaching and mentoring work that I do so much. And that's not to say that I don't enjoy the Young and Co work because I absolutely do love a lot of the client calls and the strategic stuff that we do. But I'm just at a place now where I feel like we've built that up and, I've put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into doing that, into building up that business. And I think it's time for me to really focus on the next phase of my life while making sure that that business still runs optimally and we still serve clients. So I know I said this already, but when it comes to goals, part of my hesitation this morning from digging into looking at my goals was that I definitely had a fear of what I was going to find. And when I actually sat down and I listed out, I had 6 goals, 3 business and 3 personal goals that I really wanted to prioritize in Q2. I did all of the business goals. So, one of my first goals was to launch the High Profit Society in Q2. And I wanted to hit a certain amount of revenue in cash in the business, in that coaching business for Q2. And when I went back and looked at the numbers, I was actually thinking that I didn't even come close to it. Like the whole quarter, the whole last couple of months, I've been thinking I didn't even come close to it. And when I went and I looked at my payment processor, I hit it I was $90 over. Like I was $90 over the mark. The fact that I was doubting that that even happened, I don't even know. So that goal was accomplished. The second goal that I had was to restart networking, to attend some more events, and to update my speaker kit, which I did do. I did attend some networking events and I had some calls with people. And then I hired a speaking coach, and we have one more session left to get my whole speaker kit wrapped up. And so that will be done by the end of Q2. So I'm marking that goal for all intensive purposes right now as done. The third goal that I had was to hire a VA for my coaching business because I had had a VA and then, I was doing a lot of the ongoing day-to-day stuff on my own. And so I did hire one and it's been going well. And so that goal is done. For my personal goals, the one that I did accomplish was we created a garden. So I have a 4-year-old, and one of the things that he expressed interest in is plants and gardens. And so we did do one raised bed, and it's actually doing pretty well after getting destroyed by some deer about a month or so ago. So that's been going well, and we really enjoy that. And I already have plans for more raised beds in our backyard soon. The other 2 goals I did not do as well. So one of them was to go on 2 monthly dates with my husband. We did one or two official dates where we had a babysitter, and then a couple of sort of sporadic daytime trips together. But I think we could definitely improve on making a more concerted effort to go on more dates. And then the other goal was to prioritize my cardio fitness. So I've been going to a personal trainer 3 times a week for the last year very consistently. The next goal that I wanted to work on was my cardio fitness because my VO2 max has been not as high as I would like it to be, but it is not something that I really stuck with consistently. I did not build a habit around doing more cardio. And so that is going to be something that carries over into Q3. So the other things that I've looked at when I do my reflection is how my sleep and stress and movement were. So in terms of sleep, I was averaging 7.5, just under 7.5 hours of sleep, according to my Oura Ring. And my bedtime on average was after 11 p.m. And I'm happiest when I'm getting closer to 8 hours on average, which means I need to go to bed by 10:30, be lights out by 10:30. And so that's something that I need to shift because I noticed that my sleep over the last like 6 months has been slowly trending down. So I can very clearly see that's an area that I need to tighten up because to me, sleep is foundational. For my stress levels, my HRV actually, heart rate variability, has been increasing. It's the highest it's ever been. So I'm really happy with that. My ring also tracks my daytime stress levels. That was one that was a major red flag for me in Q3, and I've already over the last month taken steps to improve it. But in the month of May, I was averaging right at 5 hours per day of my ring, registering me being in the stress level. And then June, it came down to about 4 hours per day. And so when you think like that's an average, including weekend days, like 5 hours a day for me, I believe is a lot. It's a lot of stress. And my ring does say, I have a pretty high stress load. So that's something that I'm prioritizing de stressing throughout the day. And then for movement, my movement numbers were definitely down. So when I look at my, stats on overall calories burned during the day and steps, they were kind of down from Q1. One thing I noticed in the last few months is that I've been doing less walking on my walking pad and I've been reserving walking for going outdoors, which is great. But having a walking pad back in the winter months helped me get a lot more steps. I don't know if I stopped it because of the weather, because I just prefer to walk outside, but I think that's a sign that I need to bring that back because to me, getting those steps in is really important. I was averaging 5,800 to 6,200 steps a day in Q2. My goal is to hit more like 7,000. The last health thing that I made a note of was that I've had more migraines over the last 6 months. So 5 out of the last 6 months, I've had migraines pop up. And when I have migraines, they last for like 4 to 5 days. Like these are not fun. And so I've already started to implement and test out some things to see if I can get rid of the migraines and figure out what the root cause is, but I haven't nailed it down yet. So that's going to have to be a focus for Q3 because I just cannot be waylaid with migraines anymore. So what I also wrote down was what were my biggest wins and what were my biggest struggles in Q2. So my biggest wins is that we at Young & Co, we really revamped our team. I had one team member who is just gotten promoted to be a CFO. And so she is in the process of training and shadowing me on meetings. And so that is going to be huge for me as we get, into Q4 and Q1 of next year to have another person who is going to be the CFO for the majority of our clients. We also had some other shifts in our team members. So which opened me up from having more full-time employees. We've shifted our model a bit into one that feels better. It feels like a leaner, more flexible team, which I'm really happy about. I also, in the month of May, over on the Young & Co side, we closed $73,000 in contracts, this was honestly the first month that I was being more intentional about marketing and sales than I had been previously. So the fact that we were able to do that in that 1 month to me is amazing. Like I said, I made progress on the speaker kit and on podcast work that I've been doing. And actually, through the speaker kit, I had ideas for books that I could write, which has always been a goal of mine. I just never really knew what I wanted to talk about. So the thought that I now have some ideas makes me feel really excited. I also started prioritizing my YouTube channel, which you might be watching this on, and we've had a couple of videos pop off, which I'm excited about because if you do any sort of content marketing, you know that sometimes it can be really frustrating when you show up and put the content out there and don't necessarily get the reach that you want to reach. But YouTube has been a really interesting process to test out YouTube. And so I'm excited about what that looks like going forward. Also, I launched the High Profit Society, which will be my signature offer. I'm so excited to have that on the world, and I absolutely love that. We also made a lot of progress on the systems and processes for client onboarding and client delivery at Young & Co. after a kind of tough busy season. So I'm really excited for those changes there. I think they will be way more positive across the board. In terms of personal stuff, I've got into a better meal prep routine for my lunches, and I'm now working on breakfast because those are pain points for me. I have read so far this year in total 24 books, which I think is great. And I'll be honest, most of those are romantasy type books. So I'm not going to go into book recs because this is not like a book talk channel. But I did read 24 books, which I think is exciting. And then I also did some really fun activities with my son. We started going to the pool more and we started doing more adventures now that he's a little bit older. And so that to me is something I want to lean into more. In terms of my struggles, I've already mentioned these, but migraines, having high stress months, I think working out consistently outside of my personal training sessions, and then honestly being frustrated sometimes at social media growth. Those were my biggest struggles that I saw in Q2, but I've already started putting things into place to help me address those. So, what I did from going through this list is I created a list of things that I want to start, stop, continue, or change. I've already mentioned a lot of those, so I'm not going to go through and read out every single one of these, but I will take this into my quarterly plans for Q3. And I want to keep all of this in mind as well as my long term vision and use this list that I made of what worked and what didn't, what I need to start, what I need to stop to help me make sure that the goals that I set for Q3 are aligned with where I want to go. So that's the next thing I'm going to do is go through start to finish and set my goals for Q3 for both my businesses and personal life. Mapped out for Q3, and honestly the process took me maybe 45 minutes to an hour, including some time to eat lunch in there. And energetically, I'm feeling a little bit tired, but I know that it's because I had to use a lot of brain power to map out my goals. And then, going into the rest of the day, what I'm going to do is calendar out my priorities for Q3, literally on a calendar on a wall. And that's my most favorite part of the whole planning process. So I think my energy will pick back up after I do this quick recap. So when it comes to my Q3 priorities, it's gonna look a little bit different than a lot of my quarterly priorities have looked in the past, primarily because in Q3, I am gonna be taking off a full month from Young & Co., from business number one, and I will be in my coaching business. I'm going to continue to run everything I've got there, but I'm doing my best to get all of my content batched ahead of time so that I really don't have hardly anything to do to show up and do in that business for that month, so that I'd really have a full month of a lot more rest and ease. My primary goal with taking that month off, and I'll do a separate video on this, but my primary goal is to reduce my stress levels, to give myself a break from emails and Slack and just the constant communication and need to be on all the time, because I think that was what was driving some of the high stress levels that I saw in Q2. I actually decided to take a month off shortly after I realized that my stress levels had been creeping up. I decided to do this at the end of May, when May was one of the highest stress months I've had in a long time in terms of how my body felt, even though I really didn't have a ton going on work-wise, which was really interesting. So what I did for my financial goals is for each of my two businesses, I actually do the same thing. I map out a bottom up, what does my revenue need to look like in order for me to do the things that I want to do in Q3. So I list out my pay goals, my profit and savings goals, and then my expenses that I know I'm going to incur, my normal monthly expenses for the quarter. And then I add all of that up and I see, this is how much I need to bring in order to basically not just keep the lights on, because I do more than keep the lights on, but this is how much I need to bring in order to make everything work. And then I looked at my forecast documents to see how much revenue I know I already have coming in for each of those two businesses to identify the gap. How much in sales do I need to generate in order to hit those numbers? And then from there, what I did this for each of my two businesses, and they're obviously both structured very differently, but the same sort of process works. From there, what I did was I set my goals for what I'm selling and how many new clients I would like to hit in each of those offers. So my goal for Young & Co. is if we can get all of the tax work completed substantially, which I know we can absolutely do, then my goal over there is by the end of Q3 to have 8 new monthly clients onboarded at an average of around $2,000 a month in monthly fees, which is very, very doable for our team over there. And this is actually something I have been documenting a little bit over on my TikTok channel, is the behind the scenes of my goal to increase our monthly recurring revenue by $30,000 by the end of 2023. So I needed to record an update, but by the end of May, we had 5K already booked. And then in June, we've booked a few more. So really by the end of Q3, I very much expect we will be very close to hitting that goal of an additional $30,000 a month in recurring revenue. Then on the coaching side, my goal is to bring in a minimum of 10 new clients in the High Profit Society, ideally more, but I think that 10 would be a very reasonable and low lift goal. My goal for Q3 is not to, have any crazy launches or feel like I need to be on and busy, because I want it to be a time for me to rest and take time off. And then one of my other priorities is very much on the visibility front. So doing more pitching, just making sure I'm out there. It's hard to do that when you're also focused on having to do a huge launch, at least in my personal experience. So, I will probably promote some things that I don't expect, at least currently, I don't expect to do a huge formal launch of anything for my coaching business. So my goal over there is at least 10 new membership clients. And then I would like to have, in my other offers in the collective, and then I do occasionally do some intensives, I would like to get, let's say, another 5 to 7 of those clients in Q3. And these will come from referrals that I have, people in my network. I already probably have a lot of those leads existing. I just want to prioritize converting them into my containers. Once I have my sales goals, then I back into marketing goals. So on the Young & Co. side, we really get most of our business from referrals, upselling existing clients. So I really want to maximize that. But something that I want to do that will benefit both Young & Co. and my coaching business is more speaking and more podcast pitching. I've already started that process this quarter with getting my speaker kit updated. And so one of my goals for Q3 is on the visibility front to be more actively pitching for speaking engagements, workshops, and podcasts. So if you know anybody who would like a speaker, let me know. And then on the Young & Co. side, I also want to do a webinar over there, which I've not done in probably 2 years, but I would like to do a webinar in September. And then it's our normal sales and marketing process. I think we could very likely get 8 new monthly clients without doing any of that. But I think that for me, that's more of a long-term lead generation play where I want to diversify our marketing a little bit. And then on the coaching side, I really want to build out, or not build out because I already have it built out, but my profit plan challenge and my, client journey from social media through email and all of that into the High Profit Society, which is funny saying this on a channel where I also promote the challenge in the High Profit Society, but just keeping it real. So my goal over there is to formalize that a bit and test some different things out and really push it. And in terms of numbers, I would really like to get at least 200 more signups into the Profit Plan Challenge, because I have a theory I want to test about conversion rates and the number of people who would go through the challenge and into the High Profit Society. The last thing I do before I prioritize my goals is I will brain dump anything else in my business that I feel like needs some work. So some of the things I put down are we will be hiring a tax strategist, another CPA. I also am training my other employee who is now one of our virtual CFOs. We are actively working on upgrading the client experience from onboarding to all of our processes for client delivery. But the team really is handling most of that. So I put it on my radar. It's just not something that I personally am going to get like super heavily involved in. And then we also, for the firm that we bought in Florida, during Q3, we will be shutting down the office that we have down there and moving. But again, these are things that I'm just going to make sure happen on time. I don't expect for me personally to have to get involved. And then on the coaching front, one of the things that I do want to also focus on, I don't know if it's going to be a Q3 priority, but I do want to upgrade my branding over there. I realized I haven't had branding pictures done in over a year. And since I last had them done, I've lost almost 15 pounds. I just feel like my overall vibe is very different than it was. And so I do want to get branding photos done. So those are kind of all my projects. So what I do is I have this kind of brain dumped out in my notes here. And what I do is I prioritize 3 business and 3 personal goals. I will have other goals that, if I'm able to work on them, that's great, but I'm not going to hinge my success for the quarter on getting anything more than that done, because I find that it becomes, you start to overcommit yourself if you put too many goals as your top priorities. So what I did was I skimmed through everything that I had written down, including what I did earlier this morning around what I needed to start and stop and continue and change. I skimmed through all of that and said, okay, what are the things that would help me hit my goals the fastest? What are the most needle moving priorities that I could have for Q3? So the 3 business goals that I am prioritizing are team. So hiring the tax strategist, training the team, continuing to improve processes as one goal is a big priority. 2 is pitching, because I know from my personal experience pitching before, it can take 6 to 12 months sometimes from the time you make a pitch to the time the podcast interview goes live or the conference happens or whatever it is. And then the 3rd one is building out further and further testing the funnel to get clients into the High Profit Society. Now, I will also continue doing the ongoing marketing and things that I'm already doing now. To me, these are built into my habits, and so I don't necessarily have to make it a goal to prioritize these things. I just will make sure when I'm calendaring everything out in the next step that I'm leaving adequate time to, create the content and also work on these projects. Now, in terms of my personal goals, what I decided my 3 top goals are actually all things that I really want to prioritize when I'm out for a month and do a better job of building habits around these things so that when I go back to working, I have the habits in place. So the things that I said I wanted to prioritize first would be travel with my family, so experiences with them. 2 is cardio fitness, and so I want to do more specific workouts around improving my cardio fitness. And then home stuff. So I really would like to have more time and more routines around keeping things organized and just daily maintenance of things that happen when you have a kid and a husband who works from home. On top of, one of the other things is we really need to hire another house cleaner. It's been a while since we've had someone, and it makes such a huge difference in my life. And so that will go under that home bucket. All right, so that's it for my priorities. For Q3, the next thing I'm going to do is I've got my calendars on the wall. I am going to switch them out and I'm going to start filling in my calendar. There is a process that I go through in order to, fill everything out on the calendar so I don't just start slapping things on there. I always will first put into my calendar time off. So I'll block off, for example, the month that I'm taking off from Young & Co. And then any other school holidays or things like that, I will make sure to block those days off on my calendar because I don't want to prioritize getting any projects or work done if I know I'm not going to be in the office. The next things that I put onto my calendar are client meeting days. So I have structured my schedule so that I have a couple days a month, a few days a month that are client meeting focused. And so I really don't ever expect that I'm going to get anything done outside of those days, outside of the meetings on those days. And so I will block those days off next. The next thing I put in there is time to batch content. So I have time for podcast, YouTube, and social media content that I always do better when I take time to batch. So I'm going to slot those days onto my calendar. And then with the days that are remaining is where I'm going to put in project days. So these will be where I take more CEO type days to work on the projects that are a priority for me. Now, actually, when I look back at my business goals, 2 of the 3 priorities I have, I will use my team to do a good bit of the legwork to help me get these done. From, team hiring and training to podcast pitching, both of those things I can get support from the people I already have on my team. And so when it comes to projects for the quarter, really it just leaves the High Profit Society funnel that I want to prioritize. And so I think that will align nicely with me taking a month off because I don't want to overcommit myself because I actually want to take the time off in order to rest and come back and be really rejuvenated. That is it for my quarterly planning. It actually went a lot faster than it has in a lot of other quarters to get that onto a calendar, primarily because I'm taking so much time off that it really doesn't allow me to do a whole lot of work, a whole lot of things outside of my normal, stuff to continue running everything, which, can be difficult. I think I've been doing this calendaring process for probably 3 years or more at this point, and I definitely used to overcommit. I used to underestimate how much time it took, and I would overcommit what I could do in a quarter. So I feel like I've gotten a lot better at not doing that, but it has taken a lot of practice. So what I'll do from here is I do love my wall calendars because I like the sticky notes. I like to be able to see everything at a glance and move the stickies around if I need to. But since I'm actually not going to be in my office for a large chunk of the quarter, what I'm also going to do is take my Remarkable tablet and get one of those PDF calendars. I'm going to transfer that plan, although it won't be color coded in the Remarkable, but I'll transfer the plan into my Remarkable so I can take that with me. And then I also have been using a full focus planner for several years now. So I'll also, document the goals that I wrote down that I was going to prioritize. I'm going to document those in my full focus planner, and then carry that through in my weekly planning process. I hope that this was interesting for you to follow along, that this inspired you to have a quarterly reset process if you don't have one already. And if you are a business owner who wants to build a more profitable and sustainable business that does not require you to work full-time hours or more, and you want to go through implementing this process in your business, implementing a more highly profitable business model that allows you to build a team, that allows you to take more time off, then I highly recommend you start with my free profit plan challenge, which you heard me mention in this video. But it actually is, if I do say so, an amazing free resource that will walk you step by step through how to prioritize what you need to focus on next and building out your everything from your business and money goals to your marketing and sales strategy, and identifying the other areas of your business that need some work so that you can actually take steps to implement those and make progress consistently over time. So you can get the free challenge at sarahhyoung.com/profit plan. So I hope you enjoyed this recap, and I'll see you back next time.